Well, hello. So today's video, as you can probably tell, depending on how many of my videos you've seen and how you found me, is a bit different of a setting. You guys probably see me more like a lumberjack in my off-grid property and all of the, living off the land type videos and self-reliant skills in the mountains and off-roading and all that good stuff. And of course, there's going to be tons and tons more of that content to come. If you're new to the channel, this channel is dedicated to building a community of people who are really dedicated to becoming more self-reliant, who want to build skills, want to rely on themselves, become more independent, and that kind of thing. And I'm doing that through buying real estate land, and my goal is to develop land in a way that's completely self-sustaining, where it's producing its own power, water, and food. That's my bigger picture mission. And the Derby Canyon Retreat, which is my private property outside of Shasta, Washington, is kind of the first proof of concept where I'm doing a bunch of really cool projects out there. I'm renting it out as a property on hip camp and that kind of thing. And that's where it kind of comes today, where I'm also helping to teach you guys how to become self-reliant in business and finances. And that means a lot of different things for lots of different people. But most importantly, before we talk about anything else, and frankly, what's really relevant on YouTube is, how do you know who to listen to? There are a million voices out there. There are tons of gurus and coaches and people that frankly, I don't know if they're worth listening to. And what's really, really important, in the simplest way I can state it, is you should listen to someone who's been where you are and who's already achieved what you want to achieve. So why should you listen to me? Well, I don't know. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. But here's a little bit about me and my background. So building sustainable communities, which is a pretty big endeavor, is a 10-year plan for me. And right now I'm on about year 7 out of 10. And for me, there's been a lot of stepping stones to get here. You don't start out as a college graduate 22-year-old saying, I'm going to just go make a development company, buy land and develop it. I mean, at that point, I didn't have the capital or the skills to do so. So I started with financial independence. And for me, that meant buying real estate, living in a property that was a multifamily. So the first house I ever bought was a triplex where I lived in one of the units. I rented out the others. I essentially lived for free so I could save money for 3 years and use that to buy more real estate to create a small rental, portfolio that allows me to have passive income today. So that was not only awesome for building the skills of being a landlord, of understanding how to value, buy, and manage rental properties, but also I have now the benefit of passive income, and I also have some really great assets. And in a future video, I'll talk a little bit more about rentals. It's not for everyone. I personally think they're one of the best assets in the world for a lot of different reasons. I also got into real estate in a time where it was very, very beneficial, and you can't exactly duplicate what I did, but the blueprint that I followed is one that I'll teach you guys in future videos. And this playlist, which is basically the business side of living off the land, is one where I'm going to focus on finances, on business, and skills of personal development and just building skills in general. So that's the other thing. I started in real estate. Back then I was an employee. I actually was selling solar energy, which was a good way for me to make a strong income while also being in an industry I was passionate about. I believe in renewable energy. The sun is an awesome resource, and with off-grid communities, having a big solar farm is definitely one of the strategies to power that entire community. So again, taking a step back, listen to people who have been where you are and have achieved what you want to achieve. I, was a college kid, worked my way through college. I was a kind of a planner all my life. When I was in high school, I worked at restaurants. I saved every single one of my paychecks so that I could save for college, because I knew my family could help me a little bit, but not put me through school. So for me, I've always been the kind of person who thinks ahead, who has definitely worked my way up, gained skills, and using these different stepping stones to get to where I am today. One of my very favorite sayings in business and in general is, get to where you can see, and once you get there, you'll see further. So that started with rentals as an employee. Then I continued to learn real estate and got to a point where I was comfortable becoming self-employed. My background, I've owned about 5 businesses in 4 different industries. That includes real estate. I've done almost every type of real estate transaction, rentals, wholesaling. I flipped a couple houses, which really I figured is just a job unless you build a big company and have a lot of employees, which really isn't the direction I wanted to go. I got into business brokering, where I actually owned a business brokerage, and that was extremely important because I learned a very valuable skill of how to value businesses. how to grow businesses, and reading books all along the way. I learned how to scale a business, or at least structure it in a way where my time's not required for that business to run. And I had a massage business that was a franchise, and the business brokerage, which I started out as I wanted to build it into a bigger business with employees, and realized that really wasn't the thing for me. But it was a way for me to find my next business, which was a education-based company, where today I have employees that run that business. I still oversee things, but I knew that I had to get to a point where I had a business that would pay my bills, and I could spend most of my time on the sustainable development and be able to dedicate time and resources and research and learning what exactly is a business model that makes sense and that works and that I can do to be able to achieve these bigger picture goals. So that's one of the reasons that I can spend time on the YouTube channel. That's one of the reasons that you're going to see more content at the mountains, because I'm fortunate enough that I've built a life where I can spend Fridays and Saturdays going up to the mountains. Sundays are just my personal time, because work-life balance is definitely really important. And that's something that I started with the end in mind and worked towards it and achieved those goals. So if those are the kinds of things that sound good to you, or maybe you don't want to be exactly like me, but learn a few of those skills. Maybe you want to become self-employed. Maybe you want to buy a business. Maybe you want to build a business. Those are things I have direct experience with and am very skilled at. And again, along the way, each one of these served a purpose. My business brokerage taught me how to buy and sell businesses, how to value businesses, how to grow businesses. I used those skills to be able to build the business I have today in education, where I have an awesome team. They run the day-to-day, they handle the business, and I oversee it, and it doesn't take a ton of my working week. Now, don't get me wrong, I still work 12 hours a day, but those 12 hours include things like my morning routines that are more about my physical health and my mental health. I have some chronic back pain and other things that I have to do physical therapy every day to keep that manageable. I'm also going to be the first to tell you guys that I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm learning the skills that you see in the other videos and the living off the land and all that, but I'm not an expert in all that stuff. And one example is, I don't know if you can see this, but I got a pretty good scar there because I got in a pretty significant snowmobile accident, because the property that I own up at the Derby Canyon, you can only access it via snowmobile for about 6 months out the year. So when we bought it and winter was coming, I bought a snowmobile used on OfferUp, put it on my trailer, put it on the truck, took it up in the mountain, was flying around, having a good time, learning it, a little bit overconfident, definitely underskilled, and didn't have the proper safety gear, which I've learned a big lesson on that. And I hit a tree at 25 miles an hour and broke my eye socket in 5 different places. I broke my elbow, I broke a bunch of teeth, and I still to this day, 12 months, actually about 14 months later, have to do physical therapy every day, and I'm still working on getting full range of motion in my elbow. I say that to say that I'm not perfect, but the thing that's really important is taking action, right? One of my favorite sayings is, if you want to double your successes, quadruple your failures, because the only way you can fail is if you quit. So those are some quick little one-liners and things that I carry with me that really mean a lot to me, that I think about day to day. The whole point of this video is kind of to introduce you guys to me as a professional, to mention why I might be worth listening to, and to help you think through, who am I listening to and why am I listening to them? As part of being open-minded and a lifelong learner, I've actually hired some business coaches to help me work on my business, help me grow it, maybe see things from a different angle. And they're people that are more experienced than me. They're people that have scaled businesses bigger than mine, that have sold them, and now they coach. And I wanted to make sure I hired someone who had done what I want to do. I had some of those coaches, and I'll tell you right now, I had a 1-hour consultation with a company where the very first question I asked them is, what's the biggest team you've run? What's the biggest business you've owned? She chose not to answer that question. I'm pretty sure it's because she's never owned a business. I value my time, and I didn't want to waste hers, because at that moment I knew there's no possible way I was hiring that person. And that 1-hour consultation lasted about 5 minutes, and I got off the call and moved on with my day. So I think that you should do the same thing. Listen to people who have achieved what you want to achieve and who have been where you are now. The other thing, I don't say this for my ego. I honestly, guys, I'm 36 years old. Caring about what other people think is something that I left behind in my 20s. Sometimes I debated if I should mention this or not, but because I want to show you guys that I'm a credible source to listen to, especially when it comes to business and finance and that kind of thing. If your goal is to become a millionaire, and maybe we're defining that by just your net worth, that is a goal that I achieved in my late 20s. So that's something that, between real estate, building businesses, reading books, building skills, having the end in mind and a plan, I was able to achieve. And so if that's part of who you want to be and what you want to do, maybe I'm a good person to listen to. The other thing is I've been buying real estate since 2012. Like I mentioned before, I own rentals and I hold rentals. I personally think that they're one of the best, if not the best asset in the world. I've done flips for money. I currently buy and wholesale land, and I'm doing that right now because I need to make money to be able to develop the land that I own. I don't have that kind of cash right now. I need to make it, and I'm also making money about building skills. I'm learning how to value land. I'm wholesaling in a way where it's very low risk to me. I'm trying to create win-win solutions between the sellers and the buyers, and it's a stepping stone for me to build skills and generate capital. It's that kind of thing. I'm not saying do exactly what I do, but use these concepts to work for you as well. The other thing that I'm very skilled at, as I mentioned before, is being able to build a business and run it absentee. I think that's extremely important, whether it's that type of business, maybe you want to get into e-commerce or whatever is a skill that you have in a business you can apply. Being able to generate money without using your time is extremely important. Otherwise, you're always going to be capped in what you can get done in a day if the only way that you can earn money is with your time. Now, that's not to put laborers and other people, under the bus or anything like that. It's just that if you have certain goals, there's only there's only a fixed number of hours in the day, and so that's something you really need to keep in mind. And again, I highly, highly recommend you start with the end in mind if you're going to build goals like this and have these lofty type goals. So producing passive income through real estate business, for some people that might be through stocks. I personally don't like stocks. The stock market scares me. I don't think I have very much control over it. I would much rather be in real estate, but if that's something you can create passive income with dividends and other things along those lines. The other thing, as I mentioned before, as hard as I work, a 12-hour workday, part of that is morning routines. Mental health is very, very important. I've owned a lot of businesses and not all of them were pretty or great the entire time. Even prior to COVID, I went through some pretty hard times and some dark days. And as a result of that, I've learned that work-life balance is important. I've learned that having a morning routine, which by the way, I'm going to make some book recommendations. Depending on where you are in life will dictate when and if you should read these books. But The Miracle Morning was one that really helped me. That book kind of gives a framework of how to create a routine that works for you. And for me, that means I start my day with meditation, with affirmations. I do prayer, I do reading, and that also goes into, as you might see around my office, I have dream boards, I have goals, I have plans, because it's very important to me, very similar to the point of doing affirmations, that my big picture goals are in mind and that I have roadmaps and ideas to keep you going. Because guys, motivation is not something that's going to be there every day. But when you start your day with a routine or the right things, it's very motivating. Reading is very important to me as well, because not only am I gaining skills and knowledge through the books I'm reading, it also really starts your day in a way where not only is there optimism, but seeing the positive growth and having a really good mindset, especially if you're a business owner and you're otherwise stressed and that kind of a thing. So that's a big, big part of it. Miracle Morning is a great book. Actually, I have a stack here that, again, if you have specific questions, definitely throw them in the comments. And by the way, if what I'm saying sounds like I would be interested in hearing more from this guy, learning from this guy, whether it's the business of living off the land or you just like my off-roading videos and me going up to the mountains and me chopping wood and all that kind of stuff, this would be a great time to subscribe. If you're not familiar, you can choose to get notifications. If you want to be sure to see the videos as they come out, go in and click that bell, select all, and I'm trying to post at least 2 videos a week and maybe even more moving forward. Now, I'll probably end up coming out with a follow-up video to get more detail on books and everything, but for right now, a few really good ones. John C. Maxwell, he in general is a really great author, and for leadership and business leadership is someone I recommend reading. How Successful People Think was a book that helped me kind of get a mindset and a frame for that. Leadership Promises for Your Week is another book by John C. Maxwell. If you do own a business and have employees, or that's something you aspire to, The 1 Minute Manager is a really good book on efficient and good business management and leadership. More in terms of inspiration and other things is The Magic of Thinking Big, which is another great book that I recommend. And another one that I found a while back is Fierce Conversations. I might come off aggressive and confident and all that, and I am those things, but also confrontation is not something I love. I think that's probably true for most people. This book is really great with having conversations that need to be had in a framework. It's been a while since I read it. Maybe I'll reread it sooner or later, so the details escape me a bit, but that's definitely one I recommend. Now also, I don't know if you can see the books over here. Another book I strongly recommend, and I read this in college, and it's a big reason I got into real estate, and I'm very, very grateful I read it when I did and just took massive action outside of college, is The Unfair Advantage by Robert Kiyosaki. So there's a lot of different trains of thought on assets and money and that kind of thing. I personally like Robert Kiyosaki. I like the way that he frames assets and looks at debt and cash flow. If you're a Dave Ramsey guy, no problem with that. I personally think Dave Ramsey is great for people who aren't that good with money because he's all about having no debt and eliminating debt and living free. And for some of you, that might be the right path. Maybe you want to buy land, build a cabin, eliminate debt, and live the rest of your life worry-free. That's not a bad way to go for some people. I personally understand that if I own an asset that appreciates and has cash flow, putting debt on that is powerful, and that's one of the ways I was able to get my net worth to rise as fast as I was. It's not for everyone. It carries a bit of risk, but if you know what you're doing, if you read up on it, if you put your 10,000 hours into it of becoming a master at it, it's extremely powerful. Another good book, especially if you're a business owner or want to be one or want to be more efficient, is The 4-Hour Workweek. This really just helped me realize that we waste a ton of time. I have employees that have to talk face-to-face for half an hour, and frankly, it could have been a 3-sentence email. I don't want to cut out relationships. Details important, conversations are important, but this really helps frame a way where you can get a lot done in less time, and it helped me become a person who can maximize my time and do more with the same amount of hours in the day that everyone else has. Another very good and important book, especially for anyone who's self-employed or an entrepreneur, is The E-Myth. I think it's by Michael Gerber, if I'm not mistaken. This is a great book that everyone should read. There's like 5 versions at this point, I think. He might have volumes that stack on top of each other, but just get started with this one. Another book that I picked up a while back, this is not really in the same vein as the rest, but it's called Abundance by Peter Diamandis. The point of this book is the world is a lot better and in better shape than we think. I know that sometimes it looks like things are falling apart and doom and gloom, and if you pay attention to mainstream media, you might think the world's going to end tomorrow, but this really points out with facts and data that things are pretty good. There's a lot of abundance, and it goes in hand with understanding there's a ton of opportunity and things that we can take advantage of, and just there's so many opportunities in this world. So that would be the quick introduction to some books I recommend. I definitely recommend, if you can, maybe it's half an hour every day, maybe it's half an hour every other day, maybe it's an hour once a week. But reading, especially if you can start your day with it, can help you build and learn skills, but start your mind in a great place. If you start, I'm not gonna lie, during COVID, times were not so good. I live in Washington State. My 2 businesses at the time were shut down for a month by the governor, and that sucks for a lot of reasons, and you have no power over that. And I definitely had months where I was in depression and spent a lot of time in the bed and spent all this time on my phone. If you start your day on your phone, on social media, definitely make sure it's on YouTube on Living Off the Land. But no, I'm just kidding. Take that time and put it into reading, even if it's only 20 or 30 minutes a day. I think it's very, very important. Now, the other thing, this is something that I build and go through over time, is it's very important, in my opinion, to have core values. And what I mean by that is, I take pride in the respect that I don't have a rigid outlook on politics or policies or things like that. I have beliefs, I have things that I believe to be true, but with new information, with getting older, with learning things, with understanding how the world works, with the world changing, I like to have an open mind and not just be stuck in a box or one position. Now, the point of me bringing that up is, I'm going to pull them up right now. My computer is behind you guys, and I'm going to pull these up so I can actually go through them, is that if you define your own core values, I'm not affiliated with any particular political party. I'm not affiliated with any particular religion, although I do believe in God and I am spiritual in that respect. But I created core values for myself that I constantly reflect on. It's part of my morning affirmations that I read through every morning and get my mind right and literally help program my mind to be the way that I want it to be. Is this helps me have a guide and a direction for decision making in life and basically defining who I am and what I believe in. Now, I'm going to get vulnerable with you guys because I have not shared these with anyone in the world. And I'm going to go through this list just so you guys can get an idea of who I am and what I mean by defining core values and what they mean to me. And maybe I'll make a follow-up video where I get into a lot more detail on this. But my 7 core values that help define my decisions and who I am, I wouldn't say no particular order. They're very, very hard to put in order because they're all important, but I do have them in the closest that I can do from most important down to not least important. They're all important. Now, the first one is accountability. I define this as I control my thoughts, words, and actions. My thoughts and actions determine my results. Now, whether you believe in law of attraction or not, whether you believe in some of those things, prayer and everything else, the fact is the things that you think about, the words that you use, that all creates the actions that we do, and the actions create our reality. Our thoughts and our actions create the reality that we live in. Number 2 is character. It's keep your word. It's follow through. It's do what's right. Karma maintains the balance of the universe. I mean, I feel like I see karma all the time. Character is what you do when no one's looking. It's keeping your word. It's following through. Those are very, very important things, and I think that you should live your life by those methods, at least I do. Number 3 is transparency. Open, honest, genuine, always. You know, I have too bad of a memory to lie. And I just always approach things with a very genuine and open demeanor. I also think that when you're a competent and confident person, that being open is refreshing in the society that we live in and can be somewhat disarming or, build relationships and that kind of a thing. Number 4 is be kind. I can definitely be a moody kind of guy. I definitely am more aggressive than not. All my life I was an athlete. I was a linebacker all my life in football. If you know anything about football, it's a very aggressive position, and I think I kind of have a linebacker mentality in life. So being kind is something that I help to try to keep myself, because it's important. I want to treat others the way I want to be treated. Whenever I'm going to make a comment on maybe social media or in person, I want to ask myself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Sometimes we think a certain way and we're maybe fixed in a certain mindset, or it's reinforced through certain parties or social media channels. So first, before you say or do anything, is it actually true? How do I know this to be true? Is this something that I've looked up? Is there a source that I know and believe in? Is this a fact? Is it necessary to make this comment? I used to be more negative on social media, and now I try to make sure that there's no reason to be negative. Why don't you only focus on things that are necessary and kind to say? 5th, positive faith. I believe things happen for a reason, and you can always find the silver lining. The rest of this that I read to myself is Farmer's Son. That's a story I'll tell you about. I have faith it'll all work out in the end. Enjoy the journey, have fun, be light, and the process is 90%. For me, be light is I take life a little too serious sometimes. Obviously you guys can tell I have fairly lofty goals, but if you're not having fun along the way, then what's the point? If you're not light, then maybe you're bringing too much pressure, and that's not how you're going to be at your best and perform. The Farmer's Son, so let me take a quick deviation. You've probably already heard this in one way or another. Sometimes I've heard it's like the Chinese farmer, Farmer's Son, whatever the case. The point of the story is, and I'll do the quick version, there's a Chinese farmer who has a horse. The horse gets out of his yard and runs away and is gone. And all his neighbors in the town come over and say, oh, you lost your horse. That's so horrible. The farmer says, well, maybe. Then the next day the horse comes back and it brings a bunch of other wild horses with him, and now that's the farmer's property. And he says, oh my God, the whole town comes over and says, oh my gosh, this is so great. You got all these new horses now. And he says, yeah, maybe. Then they got these brand new horses, so his son is helping break them in and train them and tame them. And in that process, he's riding one of them and it bucks him off and it breaks his elbow. And the whole town, oh, that's so horrible. Your son broke his elbow. Maybe. And when we're saying maybe, it's like, well, maybe that's so good. Maybe that's so bad. In this moment, I don't really know. Then the next day, the army comes through. A new war is started, and they're taking young, healthy men. Well, his son has a broken arm, so he can't go off to war. They're not going to take him with him, and he gets to stay home with his father. And, the whole town is saying, oh, that's so great. Your son's not having to be drafted and go to war. The farmer says, maybe. And the whole point of that story is, in the moment, we don't know if something is good or bad. I like to think like in this universe, we're ants. This universe is much bigger than us and we cannot see the big picture. For all we know, something that we're perceiving as negative is going to work out to be the best thing in our favor. One quick example, I've been a little bit stressed out because one of my rental properties, the tenants let me know that they're going to have to move out. They're having some family health issues and taking care of their parents. That particular lease was on a month-to-month, which I probably shouldn't allow that to happen because as I'm filming this, it's January and it's not exactly the best time to get new tenants. But instead of stressing out over that too much, I don't know if it's good or bad. And the fact is, they're moving out. I like to be very fair with rent. I try not to be too aggressive because I want my tenants to know they have a fair rent. And the longer they're in there, mathematically, that works out well for me as well. But now I'm going to be able to raise rent to what is a fair and still competitive or slightly below market levels. And I'm going to be getting like $300 or $400 a month. So they're moving out. It's January. Is that good? Is that bad? Am I going to make more money? Am I going to make less money? Don't stress about that. Just having knowingness that things are going to work out. If you have a big picture plan, you're doing the right things every day. Have faith essentially. So that was my side journey on the positive faith and what that really means. Number 6, pick your battles. So again, I tend to stress out over little things, and pick your battles means focus on your priorities. Don't sweat the small stuff. When it comes to worrying about something, is that thing crucial? Is it urgent? Can I actually make a difference, or am I just worrying about it? And then lastly is the growth mindset. So for me, that means focus and effort create growth. So sometimes we can get afraid that we're going to lose something we've worked for, bad things are going to happen. But for me personally, especially in this big picture 10, 15-year plan I have, as long as I'm doing the right things, taking a step at a time and moving forward, I feel like things are growing and there's always an upside potential. With that growth mindset, I want to do my best in everything. 1% compounds, which mathematically, if you grow by 1% a day, I don't know the numbers right now, but if we do that math of 1% growth every single day, it's a huge number at the end of the year. I think that, I don't know where I heard this, but most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. And if you take that concept and this 1% compounding growth and apply that not to a year, but 10 years, you would be incredibly impressed in what you can accomplish. So those are my core values. I hope you guys appreciate that. I've never shared those with anyone. I'm being a little bit vulnerable, which is another thing I'm trying to work on. But try to come up with those for yourself. Try to have core values that you live your life by that can help in times of difficult decision making and define who you are as a person. You combine that with morning affirmations. The other book that I've read recently is The Subtle Art of How Not to Give an F. And one of the takeaways that I took from that is we define what winning and losing is. Sometimes everyone else looks at society and we have all this pressure. Maybe you have parents or there's certain cultures or societies where they have all this external pressure. But if you define your success in certain ways, like for me, if I do my physical health routine, I do my meditations, I do all that stuff, I put in my hard day's work, I do everything that's on my checklist, like that means I win that day and I can't lose if I look at life that way. So maybe adopt that mentality as well. Now, lastly, I don't want to make you guys feel like you have to work 12 hours a day, break your back, do all this stuff. I know there's certain gurus out there that say that. Maybe they're right. Maybe they get ahead by doing that. It's not my style. When I say I work 12 hours a day, like I said, I have a good 4 hours dedicated to health for physical, mental growth, reading in the mornings. And that might seem excessive, but for me, physical health is extremely important. It helps me with my mental health, it helps me with my physical pain, and it also helps me, as being someone who is self-reliant. In a perfect world, when I go up to the mountains, I'd have someone else with me. I'd always have 2 snowmobiles with someone else. I'd always have a partner. That's just not realistic for me. I go up on Fridays and Saturdays. Most people that I know could not do the same schedule. So I'm almost 100% by myself when I go up there. So being physically strong is important. You tip your snowmobile over, which happens all the time. We get 4 feet of powder up there this time of year. By the way, in a couple weeks, next week I'll be up there. So in a couple weeks, you'll see a video coming out on that. You need to physically be able to take care of it. When I crashed my snowmobile, I had to hike myself out. I needed to make sure I had the cardio. That property's at 3,000 feet. Getting to the cabin was not an easy trek. That's also why if you guys look at my off-road gears, having snowshoes is really important because otherwise I would not have gotten out of there because that's like 4 feet of snow and it's very soft because that's 3,000 feet of elevation. So anyway, when it comes to work-life balance, there's another analogy or story that I love to tell. So let me share that with you today as well. It's the story of the lumberjack. And so the whole story goes, there are 2 lumberjacks. There's this one guy who he works 10 hours a day. He's just works his butt off. He's always working hard, laboring, and he does his work. He gets his quota working hard, right? And there's this other guy that he sees every day. And this guy comes in, an hour later. He's there doing the work. He hits his quota and he's done 2 hours earlier. After seeing this for a couple of weeks, that guy that's working 10 hours a day and is working his butt off, it's like, you know what, man, I just got to ask you, you come in later than me, you leave earlier than me, you're doing the same amount of work. Like, how do you do that? And that guy says, well, when I'm not here, for one thing, that hour before I get here, I'm sharpening my axe. And when I sharpen my axe every day, it's more efficient and I'm getting more work done for every swing that I make. Kind of like reading books. He's like, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm eating a big meal. I'm getting, a big breakfast while you're out here working. I'm cooking and making up everything that's protein and energy. And so that when I'm out here, I can be more effective that way as well. And, honestly, I think I'm forgetting a thing or two of that story. But the point is that work-life balance is not just about like mental health and that kind of thing. It's being more effective with the time that you're working. I'd much rather work 4 hours of office work or physical work in a day and being 125% more efficient than working twice the hours or what the case may be. So keep that in mind when it comes to work-life balance, when it comes to defending that time for things like reading, mental health work, going to the gym. Again, those are my exact examples. Hopefully you can take these and extract them into your own personal experience in life. So when I talk about affirmations, dream building, or just starting with the end in mind and having those things top of mind, let me be a little more transparent and show you guys what I mean. I'm going to give you a quick little tour of my office. Please be gentle. This is my personal, very vulnerable space, and I've never shown anyone else this stuff, so this is between you and me. Firstly, having a dream board. I'm not going to go into the details of this. Some of it's a little outdated, but there are things that I look at that inspire me. There are things that I, aspire to achieve or just help me visually if I'm, just glancing over while I'm working at my desk, keeping these big picture things in mind, and it definitely helps with motivation. Obviously, I keep my books here, not just a nice background, but also something that I can keep in mind when I see them, the concepts that they produce. Every morning I start off where I have a certain goals, I have certain flow charts, I have certain imagery I like to keep in my mind. And again, a lot of those things are based on starting with the end in mind. You will not achieve your goals if you don't know what the end is going to look like. It's like reverse engineering, which, by the way, the other thing I didn't mention is my formal bachelor's degree is in engineering. It is something that gave me an incredible skill set. I'm very happy that I graduated with that degree, but I also started working for a company called Student Painters when I was in college, and Student Painters is how I learned how to run a business. It's how I fell in love with entrepreneurship and learned the value of working your butt off early to build a team and systems that you can then leverage to have passive income, or semi-passive income, as I'd probably more accurately describe it, where you're utilizing other people's time and you can spend yours working on your bigger picture missions. I have other things that have to do with the sports teams that I love. There's my student painter memorabilia, more vision boards, and my meditation area. Obviously, bookshelves. And if you guys don't believe me, I am an award-winning salesman, broker, and real estate investor. I actually take a lot of pride in these because these were from a note conference where they literally only handed out 3 awards at this national note conference. I was by far the youngest person in the room of about 250 people, and I won 2 out of 3 awards. I don't say that for my ego. I don't say that to impress you. I say that so you guys know I'm a credible person to listen to and build my credibility, because again, listen to people who have been where you are and who have achieved what you want to achieve. All this being said, the biggest point of this video is, who do you listen to? And you should listen to people who have achieved what you want to achieve and who have been where you are now. If I'm that guy, I hope I earned your subscription. Please subscribe, click that bell so you see all these other videos. This is a first of what I hope to be a long playlist of the business side of living off the land. I want to teach you guys how to buy land. If you don't want to learn this or be hands-on, I wholesale land and I can sell you land. That's honestly part of this for me as well. But the biggest point is building a community, teaching skills, and I'll be completely honest with you guys. One day, when I have that 100-acre parcel that I want to turn into a small village of self-sustaining properties, I want you guys to be a part of that. Whether that's buying one of those properties, whether that's visiting, whether that's helping support us in other ways. I want to help you guys build skills. I want to create a community of people who are like-minded. I want to motivate others, and I think that I've done a pretty good job of achieving my goals of being the man of admiration that I'm looking to become, and that's something I work on every single day. And I hope that I've earned a little bit of your time and attention on the channel, and I hope you comment and get involved in the channel, because I do want this to be more of a conversation. If you guys have specific questions of anything I said today or things in other videos, comment. Let's create a community. Let's communicate. I definitely will be picking comments and making videos, and I want to make sure the content is relevant to you guys. So, of course, be careful who you listen to. Listen to the right people. Hopefully this video helped with that. Maybe get inspired to read a book or change your morning routine a bit. If you have no routine or don't know where to start, Miracle Morning is great. If you have zero financial idea of what direction to go, or don't really understand what I even mean when I say assets and cash flow and debt and that kind of thing, Rich Dad Poor Dad Unfair Advantage is a great book to start with. Or if you're looking to build leadership skills or business skills in leadership, John C. Maxwell has a bunch of books, and I personally would start with How Successful People Think and Leadership Promises for Your Week. So guys, participate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
My mission is self-reliance through sustainable living, and we're here to build a community. Click here to subscribe to be sure to get more awesome content for living off the land. And be sure to go in to enter for notifications. Click that bell, get notifications, and stay in tune. Subscribe, watch, and comment. Let's build a community. See you soon.